Calli, you run the socials for some of the biggest brands in the United States. How do you justify these prices?
I've worked with over 200 brands. We honestly know what works. Like, I know what works and I know what doesn't, and I know what it requires to get the job done.
You always have to promise. Like, if you promise, you gotta deliver even higher.
All day, every day.
When your clients try to go viral very hard, what do you say to them? Calli, you run the socials for some of the biggest brands in the United States, or definitely one of the most loved. And you told me you run the social for Delida, for some crazy good hotels, award-winning companies and all that. How did you land these deals?
That is very kind of you to say. I do love our clients very much. To this day, every single client of ours has been word of mouth and referrals. So from the day we started, with one brand, it just kind of snowballed, and we don't really do any outside of social media. We don't really do any marketing, but all of our clients have been incoming just referrals and word of mouth.
Wow.
It's been great.
And you've been doing this for 11 years. So I want to run through the whole thing, the whole evolvement of all these different channels. You saw a lot of Instagrams and Snapchats of these worlds come and go. What's the next big thing?
Yeah, it's wild. You literally couldn't even edit a caption when I started. So if you made a typo, you are in big trouble. And I think one of the most interesting things, honestly, my approach with social is that the platforms are constantly changing. They're constantly evolving. And yes, we can all make predictions about where it's going to go, or we're seeing video first content or social search, social as a search engine, all of these things that I think people talk about as far as like trends and where things are headed. But at the same time, I think one approach I've had is see where the platforms adapt and then move quickly with it. And so we can't always make predictions. Sometimes Meta will roll out a new platform, or they'll roll out a new feature of one of their things, or they'll get rid of IGTV, or they'll add Reels as a tab, or all of these things are constantly changing. And I think a big piece of managing social well is just waiting for that change to happen. And the minute it happens, educating the client, hitting the ground running, and adapting for the brands.
Do you remember when they rolled out Instagram stories for the first time?
Yep.
What was a day like for you?
Oh my God. Well, there were Snapchat stories at the time. And so it was this thing where you'd post some content on Instagram, but then Snap was like the day in, day out. Instagram stories rolls out and it's like a whole new world. We can now post content in the moment. And then that started to get more curated, but it's like, these new platforms or features roll out and we have to be the first ones to immediately know how to utilize them.
Oh yeah. I remember that day. So I was using Snapchat stories for a while, like a couple of weeks or so, right? And I always had like 20 or 30 people watching my stories, right? And then Instagram rolled out this feature and I posted one or two stories. Oh, immediately like 2,000 people. Wow. Okay. Thanks.
Whoa.
Bye.
Yep.
Snapchat.
Yep.
So unlucky day for Evan Spiegel, but I think he takes it with dignity. I was actually at a talk with him a couple of weeks ago, and I checked out his LinkedIn bio. Right, he's on LinkedIn now, and does like some PR stuff. Probably he has to because the stock is down. But in his bio is former education, VP of product at Meta. So I think that's so funny that he sees the irony.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
That's good. But let's talk a little bit about the Instagram channel in general. I always try to explain to our clients as it's kind of like the lobby of a good hotel. It's a hygiene factor. So you come in and you see, oh, that place is legit. They have been posting for a while. The last post is not from 2019 or whatever. And it does look like, even if you look into the corners or so, it looks nice. What's your perspective on a good Instagram channel?
Yeah, I love that. Lobby of a hotel. That's a good one. I kind of used to joke it was like the 3 swipes and you're out rule. So somebody comes to your page, you might have a few seconds to get their attention, or a few moments. They might swipe 1, 2, 3 times. And in that, they're going to decide, is this a platform? Is this a channel that I want to follow? Is this interesting to me? Is it engaging? Is it beautiful? Is it aesthetically pleasing to me? What value am I getting? And so, I hear a lot these days of like, oh, a curated feed doesn't matter and it's more about the actual posts. And yes, that is true. But to a brand new follower, when they're still coming over to your page, you want them to have the same experience looking at your profile as they would if they bought your product, went on your website, walked into your hotel. And I think the feed does that. Instagram highlights do that. You know, sometimes people want to know a little bit more about a product or about a location or what they're going to get from engaging with this brand or booking a stay or, you know, whatever kind of touch point, ordering a product. And the more that you can tell them about like, this is who we are and this is what you're going to get from us quickly, I'd say the better.
Okay. So, as you have a lot of clients in hospitality industry, I mentioned a couple once earlier. I would love to speak about some of them later also. But let's say what would be a good strategy for a restaurant Instagram account for 2025?
Great question. I think,
especially if you start from zero,
right?
Because if you have a legacy account with like 10,000 followers or so, it's kind of like just continuing the legacy and bring in a little bit of spice. But if you start brand new, what should you do?
Yeah, I think you have to look at why is somebody looking, who's a person, who's your audience, and why are they coming to your page? So I know for me personally, I will often go to a restaurant's Instagram account before I Google them, before I go to their website, especially if I'm traveling. I was recently in Mexico City and there's 1,000,001 amazing restaurants there. I went to Instagram if I was evaluating whether or not I wanted to go to a restaurant. And as a user, as a customer, I'm looking for a few things. Aesthetically, what does this place look like? Am I going to get content while I'm there? It sounds ridiculous, but we know that people are making decisions, making reservations based on the look, the feel, the aesthetic, the vibes of a restaurant. Or if you want to take someone on a date, you want to know, is it vibey? And then number two, of course, you want to know what is the food? What are the drinks? What am I getting? And so I think sometimes, you know, if you're a restaurant, you want to showcase the food that you serve, the drinks that you serve, and the vibe of what you're gonna get when you're there. And I think sometimes people make the mistake of leaning too heavily into like a cool vibey brand, which is, yes, it's important. But if people are consuming food, they need to know what they're going to be eating. So you can do it in highlights, you can do it in carousels, you can do it in reels, but like give the people what they want. Give them a look at, you know, what they can expect if they book a reservation.
Okay. And recently I saw a lot of cafes also pop up when they do like their own things, right? And this leads basically to the question, in-house versus agency. And we face the same situation sometime when it comes to content production, content strategy and all that. When would you recommend to do it in-house? And when do you think is they're a good spot for an agency?
Yeah, I have this conversation very often with prospective clients. And I've honestly told current clients, you know what, I think you need an in-house person. I think it depends on a few factors. One, how are you staffed? Yeah. So if somebody's expecting to have an in-house person who's going to do everything that a social media agency is doing, they're putting too much on that one person. Because I don't think people realize that social is so much more than just posting on Instagram.
Can you break it down? What are typical things?
Gladly. So first you have strategy. I think strategy is a huge element of social. What is your aesthetic going to look like? What are you posting? How are you leaning in? Who is your audience? What channels are they on? Are they on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, X, LinkedIn? Like where are your people? And then knowing that, how are we then going to cater to and speak to them? How are we going to communicate who we are? How are we going to showcase some sort of, you know, brand value proposition? So you have your strategic planning. Then you get into your content. So now that's content production. Are you posting iPhone? Is it high res? Is it video? If you're a fashion brand, for example, maybe you have a content team that's producing your e-com shots, your editorial, but then you're also going to need a content manager to do iPhone, to do Reels, to do TikTok trends, all the things. So you have your content. You get into your posting. So posting, you're building out a social calendar. How many Reels are you posting? Carousels? Are you using audio? Are you not? Are you adding text overlays? Are you not? Which gets into graphic design. So now you have your strategy, you have your content, you have your posting, you have your graphic design. Copywriting, you're writing captions, you're writing all the copy that's going on Instagram stories. How are you speaking? What's your tone of voice? How are you coming across? Community management. Are we responding to questions, responding to comments, responding to DMs? What if there's a customer service issue? Where is that going? What if someone tags us? Are we capturing that? You get into your data, you're reporting what's working, what's not working. How are we adjusting month over month to see if our strategic planning is right on or if we need to adjust? Then are we getting into influencer relations? Are we doing partnerships? Are we doing brand ambassadors? Are we doing gifted, paid? An entire team could do your influencer. And then of course, there's also paid media. So when you really break down strategy, content, community management, copywriting, data, reporting, influencer management, paid, it's a lot for one person to be doing. A lot. It can be done if you have a marketing team and then you want to throw somebody on the Instagram who's your day in, day out person, or if you're a medical office, let's say, and every single day you have different procedures or you have Q&As with the dentist or Q&As with the plastic surgeon. Okay, great. Have somebody in-house who's just eats, lives, breathes, sleeps your brand. But to try to put all social on one person is tricky.
So you would say it's good to work with both? Like you have an agent, what's the best setup? Like where you get as a client the best price ratio?
Yeah, in my opinion, I think the agency is just as good as the team who's managing the agency. So in a perfect world, let's say it's a hotel, for example. You would have your, let's say you have your director of sales and marketing, or you have your CMO, or you have kind of your person who's in charge of marketing. You might also have a marketing director or a marketing manager, and they're overseeing all channels. So they're not just focused on social, but their role is to oversee the social media agency. And their role is to inform us of all the initiatives that are coming, their goals, their clientele, keep us abreast of what's happening within the business, tell us what their initiatives are seasonally as things change, features that are changing on the property level, really keeping us nice and informed to then allow us to do our jobs, whereas we can take that information, put together our ongoing strategy, and then roll it out in a way that makes sense. And I would say the last piece of the puzzle is just how are we approaching content? So is there a separate content creation team? Is there a separate content agency like yourselves that's producing insane quality content that your social team can then take, chop up, figure out how to roll it out, and roll out across the channels? So I guess the hybrid is agency and then content team, perhaps.
Yeah. I think kind of like the same. I think it would be definitely good to have one person in-house who can handle an iPhone, and especially for the daily stuff, right? And if you want to be very close to the client, I mean, if you're a Four Seasons hotel, so you want to be probably like elite and a little bit more like luxurious and mysterious or so. But maybe you also want to show what's going on behind the scenes, right? Like, oh, we're going to do this 1-star Michelin dinner or whatever. This is how it's been prepped. This is how the crew is feeling when everything's done. Also,
totally.
And also the goals of the channel, right?
Yeah.
Is it for marketing or like actually driving sales, bringing new people into the hotel or the restaurant or so? Or is it more employer branding, right? To find new talent or just to be out, right?
Totally.
What kind of channels do you guys manage? Like all platforms, or like is there anything you don't do?
Pretty much. We run Meta, so Instagram, Facebook. We run TikTok, Pinterest, little X here and there if needed. It's not as big of a focus anymore. And then same with LinkedIn. I would say there's probably teams that really hone in and specialize on LinkedIn, especially for like professional development, founders. We do a little bit of it.
Are there any good or best practices for LinkedIn for a company or for, let's say, a restaurant or a hotel? I haven't seen too much of that.
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit less important than necessarily like the founder story is. Yep. I think when the founder can bring like personality to it and tell more behind the scenes and involve the team, that's really great. When we're approaching LinkedIn for a restaurant, maybe not so much, but for a hotel, let's say we're talking more about team and team building and speaking more to like the industry as a whole, the hospitality industry, how we're adapting, how we're, changing the rules. Are we building residences? Then you get into the real estate world. So, it's adjacent, I would say.
I think there's actually, there might be an opportunity as I get the point with the founder story, right? Like the founder of the restaurant or so. But I think it might be also interesting to bring up some of your people. And there's always a risk, like if you expose your people or make them shine and they leave the company or so, they're just gone. Especially if it's very personal, right? But I think I would love to read the diary of a waiter or waitress of Delilah, and maybe some anonymous stories or some fun stories or some stories that like just inspires them or so. And probably you can build also a pretty good strategy that goes viral around that.
Yeah.
So if anyone is out there, like steal our ideas.
Go for it. Take it.
That's good. So let's talk a little bit about Edgewood for the people who are not from LA or from the US. Edgewood is one of the most pristine restaurant hospitality groups in the world. They have locations in Miami and Las Vegas and LA, and basically these are the restaurants where you can't get a table unless you know Calli. So
no pull.
How do you work with them, especially as there's also, I mean, it comes with a burden, right? It's not like you can do like your 0815 whatever content. You have to stand out.
Yeah. Edgewood is honestly one of the most impressive groups I've seen. They've been the leaders in LA in hospitality nationally. Now they also have a few international properties. They have a nice guy in Dubai. It's hard to stay at the top in the world of hospitality because things come and go, and especially in nightclubs and that scene, they just churn so quickly. And for them to still be like the best of the best, it's super impressive, and it's such a testament to John and Brian, who are the founders, and their entire team, and Milo and everybody over there. But I think,
how did you guys meet in the first place?
Yeah, I'm personal friends with some of them, and we got introduced, early on when I just kind of started something social. And I think
11 years ago.
Yes,
wow.
Yes, and the same way that they're leaders in their fields, they also understood we also have to be the best of the best across every channel, and that includes social. And for me, what's exciting about them is each of their venues, yes, they're under the same brand umbrella, but they all have their own unique personality and aesthetic. I mean, they build worlds around these brands. You walk into one of their restaurants and you're transported into the worlds that they've created for that venue or that restaurant. And so social has to match that. And that's been something really fun for us. It's evolved over the years. They've opened venues, closed venues, and to just translate like the vision that they have for the actual experience and find a way to do that on social, especially when some of them are extremely exclusive. I mean, Delilah at Wynn Las Vegas is one of the hardest reservations to get in America.
Yeah.
And so there's no photos allowed in venue. And so to try to take something mysterious, exactly, and translate that to social has been a really fun challenge for us. Yeah.
Can you break down the world they want to create? Are you guys creating with Delilah?
Yeah. So Delilah is, kind of that inspired 20s. In I would say LA, Miami, and Vegas all have their own personality. So whereas LA is a little bit more old Hollywood, Vegas is a little bit more that kind of like glamour of Hollywood in the era of Frank Sinatra and this time when it was just like, roaring, which it still definitely is. And I think it's a feeling of aspirational and alluring, and you never know what's going to happen. But at the same time, their slogan is nothing to see here. So they play it cool. They're casual. But there is always something to see at their venues,
You always have fun, right? Like the waiters are amazing. There's good food. They've also some like interesting items on the menu, like the one thing is like what's the tomato soup with the grilled cheese or so?
Yeah, they have chicken tenders. They are famous for their chicken tenders. They have grilled cheese. I mean, it's like comfort food, but then elevated.
It's a restaurant where it's hard to get a reservation. You pay probably $150 per person, and then you order chicken tenders. So just some comfy food. That's amazing. Yeah. Love it. I just listened to a podcast with the founder of Carbone, Mario Carbone. And like he also broke down a little bit the history of all that and how they built that. So I kind of see some similarities there.
Totally. Yeah.
So that's
definitely
good. But probably you guys do a better job on social.
Well,
I don't know if Carbone even has a social channel.
That's a good question. I know Major Food Group does, which is their ownership group. But yeah, I'd have to check it out. I try not to pay too much attention to, that's an interesting thing in social, you know, is there's so many people in the same industry and doing kind of the same thing. And really, I try to keep blinders on. So at the same time, I want to know what's going on and what are people doing and, you know, competitors, and we keep our eye on it. But I also like to stay pretty laser focused on our brands and our accounts and what we want to do for them.
How do you make sure the quality is always the same, especially as you grow? And if we break it down a little bit, the position of a social media manager, there's not that many senior social media managers, right? Would you agree on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. The way we structure, I have, you know, our junior kind of entry level position is an account coordinator. And then we get into account manager, senior manager, and account director. And I have a phenomenal team. I would not be able to do what we do. We would not be able to keep the consistency, the quality, manage the number of channels that we manage if it wasn't for my team, who are fantastic. I would say, talking, you know, senior manager, what's the difference between someone who comes in at a junior level is, okay, sure, you're doing community management and posting and coming up with ideas for Instagram stories and graphics. And then as my team has worked their way up, my more senior team members are much more focused on the strategic planning, strategy, onboarding new accounts. We also kind of get into crisis management, because at the end of the day, when something comes up, if someone sends a nasty DM or they're upset about something, we're the first touch point. And so, or if our client is in the news for some reason, or there's a PR issue, we end up being the crisis managers.
What was the worst thing ever happened?
Oh gosh. That is a good question. Luckily, we've never had any horrendous things happen.
I mean, you're not a political party or like an actor who does like some comedian with like some weird jokes sometimes.
No, we've never had clients get canceled, thank God. But we have had, I mean, I've had one of my team members leave the word caption when they pasted a caption into an Instagram for like an A-list celebrity. And you know, the post goes live and it says like caption : and then the caption that we wrote for them because my team member forgot, you know, so it's like little things like that come up. When there's world unrest, things get a little tricky. Do we say something? Do we not? In 2020, 2021, there was a lot of heat on social brands to make statements, you know, have opinions. Are you donating money? If you're donating money to a cause, how much are you donating? Like people got really intense.
Social pressure, right?
A lot of social pressure to say things, not say things. And ultimately, I mean, even, you know, the fires in January were horrendous. Immediately that happens and the brands come to us. So while we're dealing with being in the crisis ourselves, located in Los Angeles, we're now, what are we posting? What are we saying? What's the statement? Are we wording this the right way? Is this how we want to sound? How are we giving back? How are we giving to our community? So there's a lot that goes into like managing these little, you know, crisis moments.
What do you advise your brands on doing?
Very case by case. It definitely depends on the brand and the account and how they speak. And I think it's important that brands don't all of a sudden like play into some sort of big social pressure if it's not true to who they are. I think the best thing to do in the beginning is like take a minute. I don't think you should feel the pressure to speak up immediately. Rush, right? Don't rush it. Decide what you're going to do. Is there an action behind your statement? Because if it's just a statement and it's just words, customers and followers see past that. They see right through that. And so how are we as a brand deciding to take action if we are? And then let's make a statement that supports that. Okay.
When it comes to influencers, do you also do like influencer management or relation? Probably the influencer relations, right? How do you deal with that? Like on one hand, you need the influencers or the celebrities.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you can't take any photos at Delilah or so. What's the strategy there? Like, what's a general approach you guys do there?
Yeah. So I'll speak to other, you know, just brands in general, because we do a lot of fashion and beauty and CPG. And so, you know, ones that have a little bit more flexibility. Whenever we're going to start working with influencers, we always build out, like, what does our program look like? why are we engaging them? Are we trying to get brand awareness? Are we trying to get sales? Are we trying to move the needle in some capacity? Is it just to spread, is it follower growth? Like, what is the goal of working with them? Is it content? Sometimes it's a matter of content. And then we kind of tier out a program. So do we have a tier that can be gifted something? Do we have a tier that we can do paid partnerships with? Do we have a tier that ultimately we're going to offer them some sort of brand ambassadorship to be working with us month over month on a consistent basis? So I think rather than just jumping right in and saying like, we like this girl, let's gift her something, we kind of want to look at what are our goals for working with influencers. Let's create a program that supports that. And then when we're identifying who are the right people to work with, again, we're looking at who is their follower base? What does their content look like? It's not just about how many followers does this person have? Because ultimately, if it's a total mismatch of my product and the type of followers that the person has, nothing is going to come from it. And unfortunately, I do see a lot of brands get really burned by paying exorbitant amounts of money or working with hundreds of influencers and not seeing any results because they're not looking at the match of the audience and their customer, the content and their customer, and really getting clear on what they're expecting from these partnerships.
Okay. Have you ever been bored about social media?
It is impossible to be bored with social.
Or have you ever been at a point where it's like, okay, I'm going to delete Instagram from my phone like forever?
I do enough outside of work to keep myself centered and balanced and calm. And I meditate and I do a lot of things because if you just get tunnel vision and you're on these platforms 24/7, anyone could go crazy. You have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And luckily I've never had to delete Instagram from my phone. I think because it's work too, I see it a little bit differently. But I've never been at I've yet to get to my breaking point.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been a rising star back then. And there's a story that you got your first big client and the first big check, even when you didn't even have the head of business, right? Was just on your name, Calli Cholodenko, and was like $10,000, and then it went up, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, my first job out of college was through a friend of a friend. It was at like a boutique agency. She had a few clients. I started working there. And there was a spin studio in LA that had a pretty cult following at the time. They heard I was doing social and they offered me 6 months of free spin classes to do a social strategy for them. And I was like, this is great. I'm already spinning all the time. So I put together a strategy for them and they realized they had no one to execute the strategy. So they basically offered me a job to do in-house like social and marketing and email and rider retention, all these things that I didn't know how to do. And so kind of on a whim, I remember talking to my parents and being like, let me just see how this goes. Let me give this a go. I said, I'll start my own agency. You guys can be my first client. They went for it. They loved it. And that's how it started. And I think within the first month I had 4 brands just through other, people in the community seeing the Instagram get really good and saying like, wait, do my social. And it was a dentist and a dermatologist and a sports bar and a beauty brand. And that's how it all started.
That's amazing.
It was fun.
Let's talk about pricing. So nowadays there's so many options. We talked about in-house and agency, there's offshoring. A lot of people I know right now, they say like, oh, I'm just going to hire a person in the Philippines for $1,000 a month and I'm saving $200,000 a year. That's so good. And they're doing everything. And by the way, they also do my groceries and whatever, right? It's exaggerating here a bit. But how do you do a premium pricing strategy? And I would say as you're working with the best of the best and you're also not cheap, right? How do you justify these prices and what's the strategy in general on that?
Yeah, look, it's tricky. I would say you do get what you pay for. Mm-hmm. And I've had the business for 11 years. I've worked with over 200 brands. We honestly know what works. Like I know what works and I know what doesn't, and I know what it requires to get the job done. And I think that's one of the things I always talk about with people is social is not just, I've said it before, but it's not just a pretty feed. It's not just posting on Instagram. If you're doing it, anybody can do that. There's 1,000,001 people that can do that. But if you're really approaching social as a key element to your overall marketing strategy and plan, it can be a make or break for your business. I have booked countless of hotel stays literally because of Instagram. And I've bought 1,000,001 items because of Instagram or TikTok or other channels. And so I think for us, I've made the mistake too many times, and this is part of being an entrepreneur and growing, of there was a brand and I really wanted to work with them and they didn't quite have our fees, but I thought it would be really cool and I took it on anyways. And it just never works out because the ones that tend to want to negotiate and underpay tend to want you to over deliver. And so you're working with this brand and they're paying the least and wanting the most. And
I can relate so much to that.
Totally. I think anyone in the services industry or that works on retainers or, creative fee structures has probably experienced that. And in my early days, it was hard for me. It was hard for me to
say no,
to
right?
say no.
Especially
Oh my God, what's going to happen?
Especially if there's a couple of $1,000 on the plate, right? There's like, okay, we have like $3,000, but we want Instagram and TikTok and newsletter. And can you also run ads?
Yeah, can you do it all? And I realized too, 9 times out of 10, something in my gut told me not to do it. But I was like, no, it's fine. It's going to be fine. And over the years, that's part of building the muscle of owning a business and being an entrepreneur. You realize like, okay, when that little voice comes up, listen to it, say no, something bigger will come. So, we're not the most expensive agency. We're not the cheapest agency. And we've taken over social from a lot of other agencies. And I'm like shocked by how bad of a job they were doing. And I realize, you really do get what you pay for. So at this stage, I feel very confident in our team. We're super hands-on. We try to simulate an in-house experience. We're flexible. We're adaptable. We're not the agency that's going to say, here's, a month of planning and you can make no changes to this. It's day in, day out that we're talking to our clients. Things come up all the time. And I think because we have that very tailor-made, hands-on, flexible, caring approach, I feel confident that we can justify our pricing.
That's amazing. How much is it to hire you? We have a lot of listeners, a lot of brands listening.
Yeah. So it ranges on the low end, $5,000 a month, on the high end, $10,000, $15,000 a month, just depending on the scope of work.
Per channel or an
overall? So overall scope. So we don't do packages or options. We'll basically build a custom proposal for the needs of the client, scope of work, and it'll include what channels we're running, how many posts, whether we're doing influencer or paid, things like that, and we'll kind of customize it to fit the needs of the brand.
Okay, but that's reasonable.
It's very reasonable.
Yeah, I would expect. I've seen other agencies, especially if it's agency networks or so,
20 grand, 30 grand.
Yeah. For $30,000, you gotta deliver big time.
Yeah.
And we have one client in that range, and we have a whole team working just on that to make them happy. And I'm thinking you always have to promise. If you promise, you gotta deliver even higher.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that, but you have to work on that every single day. So I was very happy when you pointed that out. It's it's not okay, you do it one day. It's every day, always.
All day, every day. And that's the thing. I think social as a job is somewhat misunderstood because we are doing things all day long. And if you're not responding for 48 hours to somebody that sent you an upset DM, you're hurting the customer service of that business. So
what's a good strategy for dealing with DMs in general? And also, I think this is one of the most under-leveraged tools in social because it's kind of it's not as public as a comment. It's if I don't see it, whatever, it's okay. I can easily answer just with sending a heart or so, but probably you can definitely leverage it and even increase sales through that, right?
Totally. Well, and God forbid you do send a not so great DM and they, it got screenshot and posted somewhere. So you do have to still, anything could be, posted anywhere. There are a lot of different ways. I know a lot of people use there's so many tools and softwares and things. We prefer to do it a little bit more manually only because we're managing so many channels. But that is one of the things when we onboard our brands, we say, okay, how do you want us to be engaging with your customers? Do we apologize? Do we not? Do we escalate it? Do we not? Are we friendly? Are we mysterious? Are we too cool to respond? Are we responding within 5 minutes? And so yes, there's social strategy, but it also has to match the brand. So if you're a 5-star hotel and customer service is a big piece, think of Forbes 5-star when they're evaluating properties to see if they, get the Forbes 5-star rating. Their WhatsApp response times are part of that, and social is becoming part of that.
Oh, okay.
Are people responding
What's
to your
what's that Forbes five
Forbes
star?
5-star? It's like a rating. It's like a prestigious hotel rating. And so if you're a luxury hotel, you want to have, there can be 4-star, 3-star, but the top of the top want to be, in that 5-star or Michelin or any of these kind of ratings. And social response times are starting to be considered, because if a guest has a bad experience, a lot of the times they'll DM us or they'll write a Facebook review. Because if you think of the age range, if someone's 50 plus and they have a bad experience at a hotel, they might be writing a negative review on Facebook.
Wow.
And it's my job's team to capture that, manage it and escalate it to the client.
So next time I get my sauce béarnaise not on the side, I just slide into the DMs.
Slide into the DM. We'll have to respond to you.
Where's my sauce?
We get the craziest DMs. I'm like, this is not our job. But yeah, it's interesting. I would say overarching though, the recommendation is like, engage, be responsive. These people can turn into your brand ambassadors. And the more that you can have that two-way communication, you might turn a one-off customer into like a lifelong follower.
Yeah, that's true. I think, or like, what's your position on like personal brands and like personal brands with the company? Like we had the example earlier, like with the waitress or the head chef or so on LinkedIn. Do you think that's also a valid strategy for Instagram?
Yeah, I mean, I think founder stories are becoming more and more powerful. And especially with the rise of like the influencer powered brands, there's so many influencers who built a cult following and then kind of parlayed that and, launched a beauty brand or launched a clothing brand. And the founder story sometimes is what drives followers and is what drives engagement, because people are basically like, anything you're selling, I'm buying. And I do think in general, showcasing like a human element is really important. So even if it's not the founder of the brand, I don't necessarily think you want to start throwing like every team member and every employee on social. But if you can showcase a little bit of that human element, depending on your industry, if you're a clothing brand and you have an in-house stylist, we'll have that stylist on social showing how to style your latest pair of jeans. Or if you have, a makeup artist that's kind of at the forefront of your product, have them doing beauty tutorials, because it adds a big human element. And ultimately, you're kind of selling a lifestyle with your channels. And if someone can picture themselves as like, ooh, I want to do makeup like that girl does, or I want to style my clothes like she does, or I want to, travel where he does, by incorporating that human element, I think it's beneficial.
I got already so many ideas from this podcast, and I make my team listen, definitely. And I also got to re-listen it. I had some ideas like for my personal Instagram, right? When you talked about like, what story do you want to tell? Do you want to be mysterious or not? The human element and all that. And I have my kind of like my content strategy, what I put out, but I never see it from the other side of kind of like, what kind of value am I providing or not, right? Like sometimes I think I put out a little bit of value sometimes, like with the reels, but in stories, it's most of the time like just like, oh, I'm here, I'm there, I'm blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
So, and it depends totally on the brand you want to be. So I love your brand on social. So if you want to follow it, it's just at Calli, right?
Calli.
Calli.
Yeah.
And it looks like a lifelong vacation. So
I'm so bad. I only post when I'm traveling. So for the record, I'm not a travel blogger, but I do love hotels. I love to travel. I love to experience different things. And then ultimately, I've realized that my followers will DM me being like, where do I go when I'm in the south of France? Where do I go when I'm in Mexico?
Oh, okay. So kind of like a travel guide.
Yeah, I got to start putting more of that out there, because I'm doing it in the DMs, but clearly it's what the people want.
That's what the people want, right?
Yeah,
okay, wow, that's cool. What's your suggestion for, let's say, events or festivals, or so, things that most of the time just happen once a year or twice a year? They have this humongous peak for 3 days, let's say a Coachella or a Lollapalooza or so. And they have like 3 days in the year where it's like slammed with content, and the rest of the year there's nothing. It's kind of like, just buy our fucking tickets.
Yeah.
and maybe there's like, oh, we're sold out, or we are 93% sold out, or whatever. Right. And here's the lineup or so. What do you think is a good strategy to create content like throughout the whole year?
Yeah. We often view our content as what's campaign driven and what's evergreen. So for most of our clients, we have some sort of always on or evergreen content strategy where we know at any given time, doesn't matter the season, doesn't matter the sale, doesn't matter if it's holiday or summer or whatnot, we know that we have content that we can put out. And then of course there's going to be peaks and there's going to be seasonal pushes and there's going to be time surrounding an event where we have to go really hard on some sort of messaging or campaign. So I think first of all, it's looking at what is that evergreen or always on content that somebody can produce depending on their brand. You also have to look at what's the need to be posting. So if I am a Coachella, do I need to be providing content throughout the year to my followers? Is it going to move the needle? Is it going to matter? And if the answer is yes, then what can I start doing that's not just a throwback at a performance or a look back at this, but can I produce something that's a behind the scenes making of, like I think of when Beyonce did the making of her Coachella performance, that was a hugely successful piece of content. And so what is something that's going to be an interesting angle that would actually be either educational or entertainment for our followers that I can do when I'm not just trying to push something?
When your clients try to go viral very hard, what do you say to them?
Virality. I'm much more along the mindset of building like a niche cult community than I am going viral. That's not to say it's not amazing to do that, but it is a strategy and it is different. And so a lot of times I think my role is almost the gatekeeper of the brand for our clients and keeping them, if they have a certain aesthetic or they have a certain look or they want to come off a certain way, a lot of what happens when you're trying to go viral is you are pushing the boundaries of your brand. You are clickbait. You are sometimes a little cringy. You're playing into trends. You're doing stuff for like a big wow or something that's going to be crazy. And it doesn't always match up with the brand. And so I kind of have to remain the gatekeeper or say, look, if we want to go full steam ahead into trying to go viral, we're going to have to do some crazy things and it might not match your brand. So where do you want to go? What's
the priority, right?
What's the priority?
Okay. I like that. I like the cult. That's good.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. I have a couple of questions for you. We have a category here. It's called Build, Break, and Boost. So what's the thing you're currently building?
I would say currently just continuing to build, my team and foster the talent that I have and really build them to be, fully confident to be able to handle all of the things that come our way when it comes to social. And this one I wasn't expecting, but I mentioned this. I get a lot of asks for freelance content creators, or I have influencer friends who are like, hey, do you know anyone that can just come shoot something for me that's not someone from my staff? So I just posted a casual Instagram story the other day to say, if you're a freelance content creator, DM me. I was inundated. I was flooded. There were hundreds of responses. And so on the build side, not that I necessarily want to become a matchmaker for brands and talent, but there is something there that I've kind of been thinking about is like, how can I become a resource when maybe they're not going to hire us, but now I have this pool of talent that I can refer out. So I didn't know this was going to be my answer 2 days ago, but we'll see. Maybe I'll build something there.
There's a guy who does something similar. His name is JT Barnett.
Oh, yeah.
So he does it with, I think, Creator X is this company called, and he kind of like matches that.
I got to hit him up.
Yeah. I'm not sure how good this is going. Like, I think if you refer someone, it always comes with a lot of responsibility, right?
And I'm not in the business of that, but I was just so overwhelmed by
like everyone is a content creator right now.
And I had a lot of brands saying, hey, if you make this list, can you send it to me?
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see.
Okay. I would love to get that list.
I got you.
Nice. What's something that recently failed, flopped, or challenged you?
I think what challenges us constantly is just staying ahead of what's working on social. It changes so fast. And I think part of the challenge is that what worked a month ago literally will not work in a month. And so we run all these channels and we work with all these various brands, and what works for one client does not work for the next client. And you really have to be so specific and so niche to each audience. So I'd say the constant challenge on social is just adapting quickly and being willing to like throw out your most successful posts from the few months prior and completely reinvent for the next month.
Okay. Yeah. What's for boost? What's inspiring or energizing right now for you? A person, a tool, a mindset? Where do you get your energy from?
I would say I'm going to answer this. I'm going to give you two answers.
Oh, yeah.
One, I'm really inspired by a lot of these young creators. Whenever I'm hiring, we do projects and we have people put together posts. And even the people I don't end up hiring, I'm just constantly impressed by the creativity, the editing, the skill set, the portfolios that these, young, often women have, and building their own kind of personal brands to then turn that into, a career of some sort. But I'm really impressed and really inspired by a lot of the young talent that I see. It's one of my favorite parts, even though it's challenging to manage a team.
Oh, yeah.
It's extremely rewarding to see them grow, even the ones that leave and move on to, other jobs. It's really exciting to see them come and foster talent and see them grow.
I mean, kind of like you built them, right? Or you were the first step in their career.
Bit. Yeah, totally. And then I think what keeps my mindset is very much so taking care of, myself outside of a career, being this founder, career woman, etc. But also knowing that I am like a person outside of my day-to-day as a founder, as a business owner, as a, female founder, whatever you want to call it. And I do that by working on myself and spirituality and meditation, and all of those things are really important to me.
That's cool. Do you get scared sometimes that like young talent can outcompete you at some point?
I used to. There are a lot of things in my early days. If a client left, I would cry. If an employee quit, I would cry. Like there was so many fears, I think, early on. And I've had many employees that have moved on and started their own agency, and some that I refer clients to today. I really do believe there's enough clients, there's enough work to go around, and not everybody is a fit for everyone. I have clients that we worked with that, maybe we weren't the right fit for them, and somebody that I worked with would be. And so luckily for me, I don't have that like us against them mentality. I really never have. Of course, if someone like does me dirty, sure, I will have things to say. And that's happened too. But I don't get too bogged down with what other people are doing, only because there's 1,000,001 brands out there and there's 1,000,001 clients, and I just can't waste the energy.
That's so good. It's important, like, to save that energy.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. I had this, like, in the beginning, I was like, oh, there's this new guy or girl in town. I was like, oh, whatever. Like, in the beginning, it was sometimes tougher. Now it's like, whatever.
Right? What are you going to do?
And especially as you're around since so... Sorry. Especially as you're around since so long, like there's a legacy, right? And a lot of people, a lot of agencies come and go.
Totally.
But right now, like we talked about this earlier before we hit the record button. In economic, more like challenging times, there's a lot of people who will get challenged. And only the reliable agencies will stick around. So I think you can be very proud of what you built here.
Thank you. I really do love the work that we do, and I did spend a lot of time early days looking at this agency and that agency and what are they doing, and then ultimately you see how many can be successful, and they all have their own look and feel and tone and vibe and approach. And I just learned, the mindset is like focus on what we do and what we do really well and do it really well. And it's really carried me, I think, throughout all these years.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I wanna close down like with maybe one recommendation you can give us for any cool campaign you recently saw on Instagram or on social in general where you thought like, okay, that really stood out.
Okay, let me think about this. You know when you're on social all day long and then you're like,
you can't remember anything.
I'm like, I literally, where do I want to eat tonight? And every restaurant I've ever eaten at falls out of my brain.
You seen the Jacques Mu activation here in LA?
Oh yeah, that one's epic.
That was wild, huh?
Wild.
With a banana. So
that's a good one.
Can you recap what that was about?
Yeah. So Jacques Mu.
Jacques Mu?
I never know.
Something French.
I never know. Opened a store in LA, and all of a sudden there was this banana car driving around, and people were capturing all the content for it,
like a life-size,
banana. They do. I mean, their visuals are always epic and beautiful and out of the box. And this banana was getting shot, and it was like their brand yellow. And then they had an on-site activation at their store that had, the same kind of yellow and the same kind of feel and the same kind of tone to celebrate their landing in LA.
That's cool.
That was a good one.
What can other brands learn from these kind of activations?
Yeah, I just saw also Khloe Kardashian launched like a popcorn brand, and there was
yesterday, right?
Yeah, a trolley, her popcorn trolley was going around. So I think there's this new kind of shift into experiential blending with social, and so you do something in the world, and that generates buzz, and then you kind of parlay that into digital activations. Actually, I know the founder, Kara, of Agency, which is the agency that produced that trolley for.
Oh, okay, nice.
For them, they do an amazing experiential work.
Cool.
And so
probably you should get her on the pod.
Yeah, totally. You should. I'll connect you.
Yeah.
But finding this blend between real world experiential and then online digital. I mean, Summer Fridays is another example. They do an unbelievable job of hosting events and making everything feel so branded.
What is it about?
Summer Fridays.
Yeah.
It's a beauty brand that we are all addicted. I probably have it in my pocket, literally. Summer Fridays lipstick. They're not a client, but they do. Not yet. No, they do an amazing job, and they really brand everything that they do experientially to match the visuals of their products. And so whether it's a color palette, or, it's like it creates like this world or this vibe of what you could also expect when you engage with their products. Or you saw Rhode, Hailey Bieber's Rhode do a pop-up in LA, and same thing. I was driving and I was like, why are there 1,000 girls on the street? And it was because they were waiting to get into this pop-up so that they could take pictures, so that they could post it. And so it's this blending of experiential and digital. I think that's huge.
I gotta tell you something. So I've been in marketing like forever, right? And I just found out like 4 weeks ago that experiential marketing is because of experience.
Right.
I always thought it's because of experiment.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't know it.
I could see that.
A client mentioned it in the car, and I was like,
mind blown. I could see that. I get that. Yeah.
So, it's all about experiences, right? So,
totally.
I think that's definitely a thing that brands should do even more. Like we see it here all the time, whether if it's Khloe Kardashian's protein popcorn, protein. It's
protein. I mean, you can't get through a conversation without someone talking about protein these days.
Yeah.
So
I had the idea of a protein drinks brand, like protein cocktails or protein.
Put protein in
beer.
anything, the people will take it.
Yeah, I mean it's combining the good with the bad. Like if I drink, at least I get my protein.
At least I get my protein. You'd probably have some takers.
All right. Kelly, that was amazing. I could keep on this conversation forever. I loved it. You should come back on the pod and we should talk some more current campaigns or so.
Anytime.
That would be amazing. And guys, if you like that, please follow Kelly on socials. Please follow her agency, Something Social.
Something Social.
And if you want to hire her or her team, I think you're open for business, right?
Open for business.
Okay, all right. So thanks, guys, for listening. It was a blast. If you liked the episode, check out our YouTube. We're filming everything here, so shout out to all the viewers on YouTube. Drop a comment and see you guys in the next episode. Happy to be back with New Trend Society podcast, and we're going for it.